Millions of young men marched to war believing it would be over by Christmas. They smiled for photographs. They waved goodbye to their families. Most of them had no idea they were walking into the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen. World War I was not meant to become a nightmare. It began as a political crisis, a clash of empires, a test of power. But within weeks, it turned into something far more brutal, a war that would consume an entire generation. In the early 20th century, Europe was ruled by empires. Britain, France, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire dominated the world. Each nation believed it was strong. Each trusted its alliances. Each prepared for war, convinced it would be quick. All it took was one bullet. On June 28, 1914, in the city of Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated. The event lasted seconds. The consequences lasted 4 years. Diplomacy collapsed almost immediately. Alliances activated like a chain reaction. Mobilization orders spread across Europe. Trains filled with soldiers rolled toward the front lines day and night. By August 1914, the world was at war. At first, there was optimism. Young men volunteered in massive numbers. Governments promised glory and honor. Generals spoke of decisive victories. But reality arrived quickly. On the Western Front, the war stopped moving. Armies clashed and then froze. From the coast of Belgium to the mountains of Switzerland, soldiers dug into the earth. Trenches became their homes. Mud became their prison. Life in the trenches was relentless. Water filled the dugouts. Rats fed on corpses. Disease spread through overcrowded lines. Sleep came in short, anxious moments. When attacks were ordered, men climbed out of the trenches and advanced across no man's land. Machine guns tore through ranks within seconds. Artillery exploded without warning. Entire units vanished before reaching the enemy line. Battles like Verdun and the Somme lasted for months. Hundreds of thousands were killed for a few kilometers of ground. Often, the front lines barely changed. World War I became a war of endurance. As the fighting dragged on, new weapons transformed the battlefield. Poison gas drifted silently across the trenches, burning lungs and blinding eyes. Artillery dominated the skies, killing soldiers who never saw their enemy. Tanks appeared for the first time. Slow, unreliable, but terrifying. Even the air was no longer safe. Airplanes evolved from observation tools into weapons. Pilots hunted each other above the battlefield, fighting duels in the sky. War had entered the industrial age. Death was no longer personal, it was mass-produced. While the Western Front remained locked in place, the Eastern Front told a different story. The fighting stretched across vast territories. Cities changed hands repeatedly. Millions were displaced. Russia bled under the strain of war. Hunger spread. Morale collapsed. In 1917, revolution erupted. The Russian Empire fell apart and withdrew from the conflict entirely. But the war did not shrink. It expanded. Fighting reached the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The Ottoman Empire struggled to survive. Colonial troops were pulled into a conflict far from their homes. Submarines hunted ships across the oceans. World War I had become truly global. For years, the United States remained neutral. But the war did not respect distance. German submarines sank civilian ships in the Atlantic. American lives were lost at sea. Then came the Zimmermann telegram, a secret message proposing an alliance against the United States. That message changed everything. In April 1917, the United States entered the war. Fresh troops arrived in Europe. Factories worked without pause. The balance began to shift. In 1918, Germany launched one final massive offensive, hoping to end the war before American forces fully arrived. It failed. Soldiers were exhausted. Supplies were running out. Revolutions and strikes spread across Europe. Germany's allies began to collapse one by one. The front finally broke. On November 11, 1918, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent. World War I was over. The cost was beyond imagination. More than 16 million were dead. Over 20 million were wounded. An entire generation was scarred by loss and trauma. Four empires disappeared from the map. Borders were redrawn. New nations were created. But peace remained fragile. The Treaty of Versailles punished the defeated and left deep resentment behind. Economic collapse followed. Political instability spread. World War I was called the war to end all wars. It did not. Instead, it reshaped the modern world, changed the nature of warfare, and planted the seeds for an even greater catastrophe. The soldiers returned home carrying silence instead of stories. Families waited for sons who never came back. Cities rebuilt, but memories remained. The world moved forward, but it never truly escaped what it had learned. Because World War I was not just a conflict of the past, it was a warning, written in mud, steel, and blood, about what happens when humanity believes war will be short, simple, and controlled. History remembers, the dead remain, and the lessons are still waiting to be learned.